How stupid do they think we are? I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel where you are watching this. This is the home for action. We do this show to shine a light on the criminality, the blatant and obvious illegality of this obscene, ludicrous administration, and we take action to stop it, to get it removed from power. This is the platform for movement. So thank you to everybody who is in this fight with me. We are not going to be distracted today. My God, today was like one distraction after the other. Of course, this is the day. This is the day that the Epstein files have landed in Congress. A tranche of documents somewhere around, it's reported 33,000 documents in this tranche that has been turned over to Congress just arrived today. This is the result of that forced vote last month, right before Congress left for their summer recess from the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee that subpoenaed the DOJ to deliver what they have in possession of the Epstein files. Now, this is a partial delivery. This is going to be not the full, this is not expected to be the full content of what the Department of Justice has in its possession, but it is significant. It is now in the hand of lawmakers. And don't you know that Donald Trump and this administration would like to do everything they possibly can to distract you from the actual content of that grand jury material and those files. Like I said, started off this morning. What happened this morning? A raid of former National Security Advisor John Bolton's house. John Bolton, former National Security Advisor, yes, someone who has been a critic of Donald Trump since leaving the administration. Yes, someone who published a book that they tried to stop the publication of back in the summer of 2020. I remember this fight very well because I was litigating my own successful fight against the Donald Trump's illegal NDAs, and this was a similar NDA fight. My legal team provided amicus briefs in his case. He ultimately was able to publish that book. But here's the one thing that I will never forget about John Bolton. One thing I will never forget about John Bolton is that he was a witness in the first impeachment of Donald Trump, the one where Donald Trump was attempting to extort Zelensky in order to get dirt on his political opponent in an upcoming race. And John Bolton was a key witness in that case. And the Congress would not vote on allowing witnesses into that impeachment trial, and John Bolton could have come forward with a statement and what he knew about Trump's extortion of Ukraine and Zelensky, but he didn't, to sell a book. He didn't do it to sell a book, and now he is having his house raided, which really, I think the Daily Beast summed it up quite well. Patel ordered Bolton FBI distraction raid on Epstein files release day. That's what it was. It was a distraction raid. Sorry, John Bolton, but I also wish you would have stood up for your country when it really mattered and been a witness in the first impeachment of Donald Trump instead of trying to sell a book and now being a constant pundit on cable television. Stand up and speak out when it matters. So a little pity for me here today for John Bolton, but I won't be distracted, and you shouldn't be either. And I was just thinking, as I was reading about all the news coming out today about Ghislaine Maxwell, this compromised interview, an interview literally between the defense attorney for Donald Trump. Yes, he is now a hack in the Injustice Department of this illegal administration. But what you should know about Todd Blanche is that he was Donald Trump's defendant when he was sitting for his criminal case, the one that resulted in 34 felony counts, a guilty verdict against Donald Trump. Todd Blanche was his defense attorney. And this man, who has a job in the government only for protecting this felon, was sent to interview a convicted felon, a convicted sex offender, Ghislaine Maxwell, who has every single incentive to give testimony favorable to Donald Trump. Every single incentive to have Donald Trump pardon her and say what will be pleasing to him. And they release this transcript of this compromised, baseless interview with Ghislaine Maxwell on the same day that the Epstein files arrive in Congress. I'm going to just read one little clip just to give you a sense, and then we're going to turn right to the Epstein accusers to really tell you about the true character of Ghislaine Maxwell. But here's a little excerpt that'll just tell you how much bullshit is in this transcript. So here's Ghislaine Maxwell speaking. She said, "So my father liked him very much," meaning Donald Trump, "and he was loved, really liked his wife as well because we were both Czechoslovakian. And as far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now. And I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him." And then Todd Blanche, Trump's defense attorney, asks, "What about Mr. Epstein's relationship with him?" Maxwell says, "I don't know how they met, and I don't know how they became friends. I certainly saw them together, and I remember the few times I observed them together, but they were friendly. I mean, they seemed friendly." And Todd Blanche, "Was that in social settings or was that in private settings?" Maxwell, "I believe I only ever saw them in social settings. I don't recall any private settings." That's a tell. Every single time someone says, "I believe," in a deposition, it's a tell. It's a tell that they're hiding what they really, really know. And just to give you a really clear sense of what a manipulator this woman is, Ghislaine Maxwell, someone who has been called out by the victims of Epstein for just how integral she was in enabling his abuse of them. That's who she is. This is a manipulator, a convicted felon having an interview with a defense attorney of another convicted felon to cover up their complicity in child sex crimes. Okay? I do not forget the lawsuit of Katie Johnson. I do not forget how this woman who came forward in 2016 alleging that Trump and Epstein together had violated her when she was underage was terrified to come forward, dropped the third lawsuit. She filed 3 lawsuits and backed out every single time because she was so afraid for her life. And maybe, who knows what happened to make Katie Johnson go away? Who knows? We're not stupid. We know. But I want to turn to one of the other victims. Her name is Teresa Helm. She did an interview last month about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I was just, as this mass distraction was coming out today about this interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, I thought you should hear the words of Teresa Helm about what Ghislaine Maxwell did to her and how she manipulates and what's the word? You'll hear it from her, how she gets victims where she needs them to be to trust her. And this is what she did.
Well, as I was introduced to her, she was very polite, kind, very articulate, very emotionally connecting with me on every point and item that I would speak about and talk about with myself, my personal life, where I'm from, what I like to do. Everything that I had to say, whether it was about Ohio, where I'm from, whether it was about my father, she had something to add and share and connect with me about the state of Ohio. She had something to add and share and connect with me about her father. She had something to add and connect with me about my birthday and her birthday and how they were one day apart and how, how that was our experience with that growing up. And so there were so many multiple back-to-back emotional connections. Everything that where I was at in emotion and connection, she was right there with me. And that was what I know now to be an extremely efficient, effective part of the grooming process, which builds trust. The entire point of that is for her to make me feel like I could identify with her, like to make me feel like I belonged there, like I was worthy, because I understood very clearly by her beautiful home and photos of presidents on the wall with her in the photo. It was very clear to me that I was surrounded by a successful, powerful woman. However, she made me feel I belonged. And so that trust, that's exactly what she did.
Grooming, of course, grooming. that interview, and just talking about Ghislaine Maxwell and how people use you, they play on your emotions, they try to connect with you on a level that feels real and genuine, and with things that matter to you, like your family, like where you're from. And then they use that connection, they use that familiarity and comfort to abuse you, to destroy you, to violate you. That is just like in a nugget what Donald Trump has done to this country and has done with his supporters. And with this Epstein situation, with all of these Epstein revelations and these files that today have just been delivered to Congress, the beginning of them, that we will be demanding complete transparency of. And by the way, Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna are going to likely force a floor vote when they get back to Congress on 9/2, which will coincide very, very nicely with the protests that I'm going to remind you about at the end of the show, and all of the other schedule of events we have going on in the beginning of September in DC. That will likely reveal, those files will likely reveal what we already know to be true about this man, how much of a predator he has always been. And like I've been saying for weeks since this Epstein story has resurfaced, this is a theme that is not just about his preying on underage girls. It's how he is preying on this country, and we can stop playing the fool. We can stop being stupid. We can take back our power. We can demand an end to this now. We absolutely can. I want to pivot to kind of what's going on in Washington, D.C. This is just obscene. This is absolutely obscene. Donald Trump was out this week talking about how his rich friends that he's having conversations with are telling him that, oh, their son was able to go out to dinner for the first time in Washington, D.C. He finally felt safe to go. The idiocy, the lunacy, the utter bullshit that he spouts out, expecting anyone to take this at face value, and people still treat this man with legitimacy, is just repulsive. DC is a safe city. DC is a city that has historically low crime rates, as we know. DC is a city that I will tell you, when I went back there, I am from DC, okay? I'm from Northern Virginia, went to school in George Washington University, right next to the White House. That is my home, okay? And the only time I ever felt afraid in Washington, DC was not even when I was physically there yet, but it was when I was thinking of going back there in January for that protest that we spearheaded, the 14th Now protest, to get Congress to block Trump's certification because he is an illegal president, adjudicated insurrectionist. The only fear I ever had relating to DC was when I was thinking about going back to DC for that protest. And I was just thinking about all of the authoritarian overreach that I knew was coming with this administration, and what they might even try to do to protesters that early on in January. And I will tell you, when I landed in DC and I got my rental car and I drove into those streets that I know so well, I got out and walked, and it was freezing cold, but I felt amazing, and I felt in such possession. I felt so safe, and I'm like, nobody would ever dare to make me afraid in my nation's capital, in Washington, D.C. And it wasn't even that I was afraid because of crime. Of course, I wasn't afraid because of crime from, street criminals. I was afraid of crime from autocratic criminals, the ones that were going to be taking over the White House. But I felt so safe, as I always did, in D.C. It is a beautiful city that is relative to many, many cities all over the world, extremely clean. There is a minor homelessness problem, like there is, actually, I don't want to say minor. It's very sad. The homeless problem that exists across this country is very sad. But just to put things in perspective, Trump's DC occupation is costing $1 million a day. On the low estimate, $1 million a day. That is 4 times more than it would take to house the city's entire homeless population 4 times. Just with all of the fear mongering and attempted militarization of our streets and democratic takedown, just think of the gross waste of what they are doing and what good could be done with your money. This is our money, our taxpayer money that is being wasted on him playing toy soldier in the streets of our nation's capital. And then putting out laws that say, we're not going to enforce concealed carry in DC anymore. You can walk around with an open AK-47 and you're not going to get arrested if you're a white Proud Boy cosplaying as a federal agent, while they arrest a man for literally throwing a Subway sandwich, because of course it's going to be selective prosecution. That's what these lawless authoritarians always do. They use the front of law and order to selectively enforce crimes while covering their own. So many things going on in DC right now. This disgusting waste, disgusting abuse of taxpayer funds, telling insane lies like it's the first time you can walk out in DC and have dinner and feel safe. Such bullshit. But there's been absolutely beautiful resistance to this. I'm going to show you one video that is an example of just one of many. I know you've seen these videos of citizens chasing off ICE in so many communities, not having tolerance for this terrorism that they're bringing to many times people that are here even legally. But in the cases of when they're here illegally, these aren't criminals. These are people who are just trying to make a living, who have been here for many, many years, paying taxes, just supporting the economy, harmless people. They're terrorizing them, terrorizing the communities, but the communities are fighting back, and they're fighting back in Washington, D.C. in peaceful ways, beautiful, peaceful ways. I'm going to show you one clip of them chasing off ICE in the Columbia Heights neighborhood of DC just this week. So the one beautiful thing about all of this attempted fear mongering, their attempt to, they really are trying to stoke conflict. Don't fool yourselves. I mean, this change in law to not prosecute open carry, they are trying to bring about a conflict and have a predicate to declare martial law in DC. That is what they are doing. But with all of that, look at the response of people like the ones you just saw in that video. Young people, old people, Black people, white people, Latinos, all kinds of people coming out and saying, this is not us. Get the hell out of our city. We're not afraid. You literally had Flair go, shout out to Hugh and Dave and everybody there at the Flair encampment at Union Station, go into Union Station the other day when J.D. Vance had the audacity, and Pete Hegseth, that sexual abuser alcoholic himself, trounced through Union Station, and they screamed at them, fascists, free DC, get out of our city, fearlessly trolling them and following them. The people of DC are fearlessly fighting back against this. The people of Los Angeles have been fearlessly fighting back. The people of Portland, of Massachusetts, of Alabama, as you're going to hear later in this show. So many citizens are like, what the hell? Who the hell do you think we are? Like, you think we're just going to let this happen in our country and we're not going to do something about it? It's so encouraging and beautiful to see that spirit from the American people. And at the same time, when I see that spirit and I know who we are, and I have no question that we're not going to let our country fall, I am so disgusted when I see lawmakers not do their part, not respond to match the real patriotism and energy of the resistance, the majority in this country who is disgusted and has zero patience for what is going on. Just this week, of course, Texas passed they moved forward the legislation to redraw their maps so that Donald Trump can eke out 5 more seats that he doesn't deserve, to rig the midterms in his favor. Of course, Gavin Newsom in California, we called him out and thanked him last week for what he's finally, something that Democrats are finally doing, finally waking up to taking a page out of MAGA's playbook, not to mention on Twitter and with his posts, to realize that you can't play by a rule book when they've literally burned the rule book and it's going up in ashes. You have to use the law with as much relentless, unmitigated, unapologetic force as they destroy the law. And so, of course, Gavin Newsom is moving forward, and the California legislature approved that ballot measure this week as well to combat what's going on in Texas. But literally, they had Nicole Collier. Shout out to Nicole Collier, by the way. I couldn't understand why every single member of that Democratic Texas constituency in the Texas House did not refuse to sign a form allowing them to be monitored by law enforcement. Only Nicole Collier in the beginning was willing to. And then the other women came up and tore up theirs and joined her. It's like, men, where are you? But that's literally the state we're in. They're holding lawmakers hostage who are refusing to be stalked by law enforcement for not allowing an illegally gerrymandered map to go forward in their state on behalf of the people they represent. And we are supposed to sit back and think we have to wait for the appropriate time. And this is literally how I have felt. And if you watch Lights On, you know what an advocate I have been for impeachment and removal. And I hear all the naysayers all the time. Okay. I know the arguments. We don't have the votes. It'll never happen. He was impeached twice before. It'll make him a martyr. I frankly don't have patience for any of these arguments. And I can address them one by one for you. But when I see what is happening just this week, lawmakers once again detained, held hostage, the militarization, gross, wasteful militarization of our nation's capital, following through on the spectacle of last week that we talked about on this show, platforming the state of Russia, the Kremlin, a war criminal, Vladimir Putin, under this ridiculous pretense that the media believed that he was actually going to get some deal out of him, instead giving a complete win to a war criminal, getting absolutely nothing for Ukraine. Forging ahead with support for Israel as they literally starve Gaza. Famine declared in Gaza City as Israel vows to open the, quote, gates of hell on Gaza. And the Trump administration is supporting this and calling anyone who has the audacity to speak out about this, some of the more prominent ones, anti-Semites, and preparing to label them as terrorists, as they already have with people like Mahmoud Khalil. Again, authoritarianism 101, labeling justice seekers terrorists. All of this going on, and we're supposed to wait for the midterms while he's literally trying to rig the midterms so we never have a legitimate election in this country again. We're supposed to wait for the midterms to have enough votes to impeach and remove him. That is, I'm sorry, that is insane. That is utterly insane to think that we have the luxury to wait for the midterms. Look at what is happening with the Epstein files. Look at what is happening with this dump and release of files to Congress. I don't think we can underscore this enough. This is the result of the work of a Republican named Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna. But if without Thomas Massie pushing this, it would not have happened. Thomas Massie is a Republican. He is a thorn in Trump's side. He voted against the big, beautiful, big, ugly bill. Okay, so to anyone who says you're not going to move them, you're not going to get the votes you need to impeach him, look at Thomas Massie. Look at how the Republicans are being forced to react to this Epstein scandal and the outrage of their own base, who are finally having some of the wool pulled from their own eyes over what fools they have been taken for so many years. Like I've been saying for years to my friends, my former friends in MAGA, okay? They are using you. They are using you. Stop letting yourself be used. These people, though, are finally, seemingly more than ever, starting to wake up. And we wouldn't take advantage of that. We wouldn't take advantage of this moment if having established and identified that this man is a child sex predator and the best friend with a man who was a convicted felon of the most infamous sex trafficker of our generation. And if that is not enough for you to get behind impeachment and removal with everything else, all of the rest of the ludicrous insanity that is going on under this administration, what is? This is the moment. This is the moment. Democrats need, I appreciate what they're doing to fight back against Trump's attempted rigging of the midterms. Thank God. But that's not enough. It may or may not work. Like I said this week, I think I posted on Blue Sky, when we get closer to the midterms, you're going to find no bigger champion than me for every pro-democracy candidate on the ballot. Pro-democracy. We got to push them a little further to understand really what being pro-democracy actually means. But you're going to find no bigger campaigner for getting out the vote, securing the vote, fighting gerrymandering than me. But to put all of our eggs into that basket is insane at best. It is insane at best. You have to understand how much these people have on the line, how much Donald Trump. He's such an easy mark. You know, when people talk about Trump and it's not just Trump, yeah, it's not just Trump because he is such an easy mark. He is so exposed. This is a man who needed this presidency so desperately because he would have been put in prison were it not for it. And all of the people that can benefit from him, all of the billionaires, all of the people who will not have oversight into their corruption because of his administration, use him as a vessel. He is such an easy mark because he is so freaking vulnerable and exposed himself. And so all of those forces, with all of their vested interest in keeping this man in power and protecting their own assets and ill-gotten gains and corrupt wealth, are going to do everything you can dream of and in your worst nightmares to keep this man in power and to not let there be opposition in Congress that can impeach and remove him. Now is the time to change the narrative. Now is the time to demand that every single Democratic representative, not to mention Republican, start getting behind impeachment. It's what we're going to do on September 2nd. We are going to welcome Congress back with a reminder of the Epstein files, an unforgettable reminder of the Epstein files, which is very much, it's all coming together very nicely. They are now partially released. We will see how much is actually disclosed. And like I said, we will be relentless in demanding complete transparency. But we frankly already know who this man is. This is a man who's been credibly accused by dozens of women of violating them sexually. We already know who this man is. We're just going to remind them without a shadow of a doubt that we know that on September 2nd in DC. And we're going to demand when we go through the halls of Congress peacefully, but in unmistakable numbers and in numbers that the media cannot ignore, that we want this man impeached and removed from office now. That's the only right thing to do. We either have an impeachment clause or we don't. Like my friend John Bonifaz says, we either have a constitution or we don't. They either took an oath to uphold the Constitution or they didn't. They don't get to do it when they have the votes. They have to do it every single day. So major event coming up on 9/2. I want to remind you, it would take less than 5 Republicans to flip, to come to their senses, to stop letting themselves be blackmailed or whatever the hell it is that allows them to continue to support this man, to get impeachment out of the House. And is it an uphill battle in the Senate? Sure as hell is. But we never accomplished anything in this world without trying. We never accomplished anything by saying, oh, it's impossible. Why should we even make an attempt? I mean, these excuses are so pathetic. We have to do everything, for God's sake. They throw unbelievable shit at the fan. They raid the house of a former national security advisor to distract you from how the president is best friends and likely collaborators with the most infamous sex predator in the country and world. And we can't force an impeachment vote? Seriously? So I need you to come with us to Washington, D.C. on 9/2. This is a joint effort of the Removal Coalition and a lot of great organizations, influencers, all of those logos that you see at the bottom of the screen, from Flair, who is making so much necessary noise there at Union Station with their 24/7 encampment that is rooted in calls for impeachment and removal of this illegal administration. We've got Cliff Cash and We Are the Flood, 5051 DC, Citizens Impeachment, American Opposition, Rise Resist Up, Hoosier Blue from Instagram has been such a great amplifier of our efforts. Sergeant Rhodes showing up, such a incredible veterans voice that has really become part of this protest movement. The dark left. I know I'm missing out some of the smaller ones I can't read on the screen, but go to flairusa.org, go to the removalcoalition.org. This is going to be a major event. I want to put that back up on the screen for a minute because I want to talk through a little bit more about what's going on those days. If you can get there early, there's going to be a protest on September 1st at 4 p.m. at the National Labor Relations Board headquarters. This is kind of in theme with the National Day of Action that was called for Labor Day. And I really do think there's some very exciting things coming in the strike space. Those of you who have been thinking and waiting for a general strike, I have reason and hope to believe that we're headed in that direction sooner rather than later. But on 9/2, that's the big day for Remove the Regime. 9/2. 9/2, Sergeant Rhodes has actually organized a veterans formation that he's going to start at 7:30 at the Flair headquarters right outside Union Station. They're going to march up to Capitol Hill. So if you are a veteran, it would be amazing if you can come in your uniform, meet with Sergeant Rhodes and the other veterans there at 7:30 at the Flair headquarters. They're going to march up to Capitol Hill, be there to welcome these members of Congress as they walk back into that building, remind them of their oath, remind them of all of the sacrifices, that the bloodshed, the lives put on the line for our democracy that's being trampled upon in the most obscene, ludicrous, disgusting, wasteful, criminal, fascist, illegal way on a daily basis, and how it's their obligation to stop it. And then they're going to join us back at 10 a.m. at Flair for rallies and speeches, including from myself, Representative Al Green, Sergeant Rhodes, and others. You definitely want to be there. And then we're going to go back to Congress. And by the way, if you missed it on that first poster, there's going to be a bunch of people showing up in Handmaid's Tale costumes, assembling at 9 a.m. So this is going to be quite a demonstration in Washington, D.C. And I'm not afraid. And those people chasing off ICE weren't afraid. And Sergeant Rhodes isn't afraid. And all of the amazing people standing up in this country at these protests, we're not afraid. We're not afraid of this lunacy. We're going to take back our power peacefully, unmistakably. And we're going to demand our country back now. So please, 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 if you haven't already, make plans to join us in Washington, D.C. on September 2nd. I also have some pretty special announcements and possible ways to help you get there if you haven't made plans already. The Removal Coalition, as I mentioned at removalcoalition.org, is growing. As you know, if you've been following Lights On, if you've been following my work, I set up the Removal Coalition because I was out of patience for the lost opportunity of these mass protests, the lost opportunity of not demanding that this administration be removed from power, and having that explicitly messaged through the media and translated to these members of Congress who work for us. It is we the people, folks. They work for us. Don't forget it for 1 second. They're not some people out there. They are our servants. So I set it up, and it has just been growing and growing and growing, and I'm so grateful. And I want to tell you about some new members and then what one of these new members is doing specifically to help you to get to DC on 9/2. This is just from the bottom of the page. We are the Flood Cliffs Organization of Flair. We're kind of the most recent. And then now we have Sons of Liberty, which I'm really excited about. Cliff and I are actually going to be on the Sons of Liberty podcast next Tuesday night to announce they're joining the Removal Coalition. Very excited about that. Another extraordinary group of progressive activists. Last time Cliff and I were on the Sons of Liberty podcast, we brainstormed and basically announced 314, which was at that time the largest singular protest to date on March 14th on the National Mall. We literally brainstormed that. Had our two ideas, mine for 314 and his for a Veterans March on the Sons of Liberty podcast. So definitely join us again on Tuesday. It'll be great to be there with Admin Tim and the rest of the gang and Cliff again. But we also have some new members since then, including the People's Think Tank. The People's Think Tank, which is, there's so many people coming to this from different but such vital angles. And the People's Think Tank is formed for a moral awakening, to reassert our moral authority and declare our moral independence from this lawless administration. It's actually largely based on a publication that Judge Luttig put out, I think back in July, where he basically called on the Declaration of Independence. And we've talked about this on this show before, how so many of those themes are what we are dealing with right now. They're grievances against the king or our grievances against this lawless administration. And they declared their independence. And so this is the People's Think Tank is calling on people who want to reassert their moral authority in this moment to sign this Declaration of Moral Independence and to take back their authority to demand that lawmakers either resign, renounce tyranny, and not just lawmakers, this corrupt Supreme Court, all of them, or be removed from office. That's what they're very explicit. And that's why I'm so happy to have them in the Removal Coalition about that being the goal and that being our right as we the people. As I love to quote from Abraham Lincoln, he said, "We, the people of these United States, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. Yes, to overthrow them. That is what I said, to overthrow them. That is our right. So the People's Think Tank is set up for that purpose. You can find them at thepeoplesthinktank.net. I know the website is still being built, but it's up there for you to see now, thepeoplesthinktank.net. And they are specifically helping us, or wanting to get together, a removal caravan of vehicles traveling from specific locations around the country to join us in Washington, D.C. on September 2nd. There is a form that you can fill out. I put the form in the description of this video. Please go down there and look at it, click on it. If you're interested in coordinating your own removal caravan or joining one of the ones that is already in the works, please reach out through that link, through that Google form. There's also an opportunity to have signs on your vehicles as you are traveling together, much like those obnoxious Trump trains, but this time with signs like "Remove Trump, Impeach, and Remove" on your vehicles as you travel. So that's the removal caravan, sponsored by the People's Think Tank, which is one of the new members of the Removal Coalition, and just really excited to see this coalition growing and to see so many people committed to this messaging and the immediacy and need for it, and understanding that we don't have 1 second to waste as we demand that this administration be removed from power. The other new member is 5051 Alabama. Love to see some representation from the South, from the Bible Belt, in the Removal Coalition. We just got their logo and website up on removalcoalition.org today. So I'm really excited about that. There are going to be a number of them traveling to join us in DC on the 2nd as well. And I think planning their own Remove the Regime protests soon back in Alabama. So really, really excited for this growing coalition. Again, there's an email on the website for any organizations, grassroots lobbying efforts that want to join the Removal Coalition and be part of this effort. It really is, this is it, folks. I mean, we are living in the moment that is going to define whether this 250-year march towards freedom and progress that has kept us as a city shining on a hill lives or dies. It's in our hands right this second. And so we cannot let go of this moment. We cannot be distracted. We cannot fail to understand our own power for 1 second. This is so, so, so vital. I said last week, I opened the show with conditions or decisions. It's decisions, not conditions. It is not the condition that we're living in. It's our decision, how we respond to it, what we do about it. So please do something about it with me, and very specifically do something about it. Demand, it is our right, demand that this administration be removed now. There is one constitutional means that I'm aware of, as I have these conversations with some of our friends in the Removal Coalition and in just the larger social media influencer space about other remedies. If you give me another peaceful remedy other than impeachment to get this guy out of office now, I will be its #1 champion. You articulate it to me, and it will be featured heavily on the Jessica Denson YouTube channel and on Lights On and through my protests. So you give me another remedy to get these people out of power now, and I'm the champion, okay? I'm not saying impeachment is the only thing. It's just the only thing that I see articulated in the Constitution. And because it's articulated in the Constitution, which is the foundation of any freedom we have, we damn well better be willing to use it. And I'm not here for any excuses as to why we're not. So thank you, everybody, so much for joining me today on Lights On. It's always a pleasure to be just you and me on this show. If you would want to support this show, which I need your help to keep it going. You can do that at thejessicadenson.com/donate, thejessicadenson.com/donate. It also supports my broader legal efforts, which are ongoing to this day. I need your support, my friends. thejessicadenson.com/donate. You can also buy merch like this thing. I'm telling you, this thing will keep ice cold for like 4 days. This thing is amazing. Retains heat and cold. Mugs, hats, t-shirts, all at thejessicadenson.com with our motto, stand out, which of course comes from the book on tyranny. You got to do it. You got to stand out. It's uncomfortable at first, but when you do it, others will follow. My God, we all have to stand out and recognize that ability in each of us to be leaders. And you can also support this show, of course, just by subscribing to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel. I want to thank all of the members of this show. Thank everyone who joins me at these protests, who writes me notes and says they're inspired or motivated or appreciate the content I put here and the activism that I have engaged in. Your feedback, your engagement means the world. It's why I'm still here. So thank you so much for that. Thank you all so much. Don't be distracted. Know your power. As always, have a wonderful weekend and let your light shine.